Hello guys, and welcome back to Sam's Motor Machine. As you can see, today I'm in the Range Rover on a mission. I'm sat on the glorious M6, which is why we're going over these lovely corrugations every few seconds. But hopefully you can hear me alright over the racket. So I thought I'd use the time to go over a few of the costs I've had whilst I've been running the cheapest 4.4 TDV8 Range Rover in the UK. And also just talk about what it's like to live with this car as well. So it's now middle of April. That means I've had this car for around 3 months now since I bought it in January. Yes, the title is correct. I bought the cheapest TDV8 4.4 Range Rover in the UK. And it's been a pretty eventful time so far, as you will have seen from the videos. First of all, let's talk about costs, because this is one that a lot of people have been asking me. It's one of the most common questions I get from you guys, is how much it costs to run, how much have I spent on the car so far to keep it on the road, and what have I spent on it improving it as well. So before I start, bear in mind this is the cheapest, or it was at the time, the cheapest 4.4 TDV8 Range Rover in the UK. This is the cheapest one that had an MOT that was running. And since then, I've not seen any that have gone cheaper anywhere either. So as far as I know, this was the cheapest at the time. So as I mentioned in the first video on this car, the purchase price from eBay, from the dealer, was £6,650. Now we've got to add £200 for the MOT that the dealer offered on this, where they put the car through its MOT for me. So that was where they MOT'd it for me, and whatever it cost to get it through the MOT was covered by that £200 fee. As it turned out, that was a really good deal for me. Take a look at the first video I put up on this car where you can see exactly what they had to do on it to get it through the MOT. I'll put a link up here. So once I had the car, the very next money I spent on it was going to Halfords, and I think I spent about 40 quid on cleaning stuff, because as you saw from the first and second videos on this car, the interior particularly was in very bad state. It had been used as like a farmer's or a landowner's runaround vehicle. So it was really mucky in here. The carpets were filthy, the seats were filthy, even the headlining was filthy. So I spent a couple of days and about 40 quid's worth of stuff just getting it nice and clean and smelling fresh in here. Around the same time, I also ordered 2 refurb kits for the smart keys, which you would have seen in another video. They're about 15 quid each, so 30 quid for 2. And yeah, I fitted those, and that was a really worthwhile upgrade because it made the key look a lot nicer to use as well. Next, I wanted to upgrade the looks on the Range Rover, so that was when I got on eBay and I found a set of 20-inch L322 rims for £137, which was a huge bargain. That £137 also included tyres, which were Pirelli Scorpions, and at the time they looked pretty decent. They had plenty of tread left and stuff, so I was pretty chuffed with that. But as you guys know from the wheels and tyres video I did, the tyres turned out to be no good. They were causing big vibrations on the car, and yeah, they're just no good. So I ended up bringing forward my plan of putting all-terrain tyres on the Range Rover, and I ordered a set of 4 Cooper Discoverer 83 Sport 2s for it, at around £170 each, so that was £680 in total. And as you guys saw from the all-terrain tyres video, that was really worth doing, and it's the best modification I've made to the car so far, both in terms of looks and how it drives as well, so that was fantastic to spend that money on it. So that meant the 19-inch wheels I could put back on eBay, and I actually managed to sell those for 200 quid on eBay, so we could take that off of the total. They actually ended up going to one of my YouTube subscribers, so that was quite nice as well. So by now, the Range Rover was nice and fresh and clean. It had a nice fresh set of all-terrain tyres on it. So all was well in the world. I was loving it. As you guys know though, I have had and I'm still having some suspension issues with the Range Rover. So my next couple of purchases were to do with trying to solve that and figure out what was wrong with it. Firstly, I ordered 2 new Aerosus airbags at a cost of about £60 each, and fitted those. As it turned out, Aerosus bags were junk, and they leaked as soon as I fitted them, so they had to come back off again and be returned for a refund. So we can take that off of the total again. The next thing I bought suspension wise was a second-hand adaptive damping module off eBay, second-hand for 40 quid. That was because the most likely candidate for causing a hard ride was the adaptive damping system, which is what these later model Range Rovers have. So I bought that, fitted it, didn't make any difference. The next thing I purchased was a new Bilstein damper for this rear right hand side. That was to match the one that the garage had fitted on the left hand side during the MOT. Partially just because it's always good to have replaced dampers in pairs, and you should always do that anyway. But also because I thought that might be what was confusing the adaptive damping system and causing it to give that hard ride. So I fitted that, and it did make an improvement, but not a huge improvement. So there's still some way to go on solving that issue. So yeah, the hard riding suspension issue isn't solved yet. I'm still investigating that. I've put a post up on the Full Fat Range Rover forum to see if any of the Bright Sparks on there have got any good ideas. So we will see if anything comes of that. But yeah, I'm still confident we can solve it. More recently, we had the issue with the alternator where it tried to destroy the car and nearly left me stranded. So the alternator on this, which may have been the original one, will have covered probably 190,000 miles. And whilst I was on my way home from work, it decided to short to ground, which meant that there was basically a huge power drain on the battery system, and it caused all manner of warning lights on the dashboard as the voltage dropped. And luckily, I was only literally about half a mile away from home, and I managed to limp the car back to base, where it died as it rolled onto the driveway. So, although she did get me home, that was a very close call. It could have been a breakdown and recovery job. So anyway, I managed to find a new old stock, genuine Denso Land Rover alternator for 150 quid. And Land Rover will charge you 450 quid for that alternator new. So that was a good saving to find that. That was quite a big job to change, and you can see in my previous videos, which I'll link up here, the process I went through doing that. Whilst I had the front of the engine accessible, I decided to order a new set of idlers and pulleys for the auxiliary drive belt on the front of the engine. Because it's quite a big job to get it stripped down to that stage, I thought whilst it's apart, I might as well do it and get it sorted. So that was another 230 quid on top for all the idlers. It's quite a lot of money, but I think it's well worth doing, because if any one of those idlers fails, it could be a showstopper. Finally, I did an oil and filter change on the car last weekend. The oil I used was around 70 quid for 10 litres. You can get cheaper oil than that, but I wanted to go for the exact specification that Land Rover recommends, which is a low SAPS specification for cars with DPFs. I ordered a genuine oil filter for this, because the car had been serviced with genuine parts all its life, so I wanted to keep that up. That was about 25 quid for the filter element, which I was quite happy to pay. But then when it turned up, I opened the box with the genuine Land Rover parts box, and I pulled out an MANN filter, a MAN filter. As any of you guys will know, you can buy MAN filters for probably around 6 or 7 quid. So thanks for that, Land Rover. Next time I'm just going to go straight to MAN and buy it from them, save myself the 20 quid. So that brings us more or less up to date on what I've spent on the car to date. There'll be a totalizer on screen somewhere for you guys to see, so you guys should be able to see how much this car has cost me, including the purchase price. Is it still the cheapest 4.4 TDV8 Range Rover in the UK? Perhaps not. I don't know. The way I look at it though is that any high mile Range Rover, or even indeed any 10-year-old Range Rover, even if it's not high mileage, is going to want a certain amount of money spending on it when you buy it. So even if you bought one that was supposedly in better condition with low miles than this from the start, you might still end up spending, similar amount of money on the car as I have on this. As well as that, a lot of stuff like the all-terrain tyres weren't strictly necessary. I could have run the original wheels and tyres perfectly fine, but that's just not me, so I decided to modify it. Although that's how much I've spent up until now, there's still obviously more money that I want to spend on it in the coming weeks and months. I've still got quite a big list of jobs that I want to get done on the car. So just off the top of my head, I want to do a transmission oil service. Now the genuine oil for these gearboxes is very expensive. You need to use ZF Lifeguard 8 oil, which I believe is around £20 a litre, and you need probably around 7 or 8 litres, I believe, so that's quite expensive on its own. Plus on top of that, you've got to buy a new sump for the transmission, which is where the filter is for the trans. So not a cheap job, but I think it's going to be well worth doing. Another job I want to do is to sort the rear wheel arches out. They're not rusty or anything, but on these cars there's some exposed steelwork on the inside of the lip of the rear wheel arches that gets hit by stone chips and gets mud caked on it over time. So what I want to do is take the rear arch liners out, rub everything back, paint it with either some sort of hammerite or something better than hammerite paint on the inside, sort those lips out, and then put it all back together and hopefully prevent any rust that might happen in the future. So that'll probably be a job that I do in the summer this year. Aside from that, the rear bushes I believe will probably want looking at some point in the next 12 months. It's got the characteristic sort of squeaky bushes as you go over bumps. When you've got your window down, you can just about hear it. So that'll be another job to do this year probably. Oh, and I've also bought a set of second-hand seats from one of my subscribers for 300 quid. So we've got a good set of seats and door cards as well. That will really improve the interior and get rid of this torn seat. So that'll be a nice improvement. Aside from that, I want to do a full paint restoration on this car at some point, which will involve clay barring and then a machine polish, like a proper deep cut polish on the car to remove any of the scratches. And there are quite a few scratches around the car. I think this has probably been cleaned with a yard brush all of its life, or not cleaned at all. So yeah, there's plenty of paint correction work to do. I'm also formulating a plan in my head to build a spare wheel carrier for the back of this. That's because with the new size tyres, the spare wheel doesn't actually fit in the original spare wheel well. So I'm going to have to build a carrier that will mount onto the rear tow hitch, like the receiver hitch in the back, that will mount the wheel on the back. So I'm going to do some CAD and hopefully get something made up for that soon. So with that total on the screen, I'm pretty happy with that overall. In all honesty, that's pretty much what I expected when I bought this car. I knew there was going to be money that needed spending on it, and so far I've been happy to do so because, yeah, as I say, I'm loving driving and owning the car. So yeah, it's all good. Secondly, I want to talk about fuel economy because that's another question I get asked a lot about this car. So while no Range Rover of this era will probably be called frugal, this one probably comes closest to that, the 4.4 TDV8. A lot of that is down to the fantastic 8-speed gearbox that these cars had, ZF8 HP. For instance, right now I'm cruising at about 60 miles an hour in contraflow, and the engine is barely ticking over at just over 1200 RPM. So a lot of that is down to the tall gearing of the gearbox, but there's obviously a lot of technological advancements in the fuel injection system, etc., that allow it to get really good fuel economy. So on my daily commute, which I do 5 days a week, I travel around 15 miles each way, so 30 miles a day, and that's a mixture of A roads and driving across the city as well, so it's quite a lot of start-stop traffic. Trip computer for that generally tells me somewhere between 22 and 24 miles per gallon, which is, to me, perfectly acceptable. If it wasn't for me driving across the city section every day, I'm sure that would be much higher. On a trip like I'm doing today, where I'm cruising between 60 and 70 miles an hour, 30 to 32 miles per gallon is very easy to achieve, really. On an even longer trip, I reckon I could get upwards of 35 miles per gallon. If I was going to drive all the way down to Kent and I sat at 65 miles an hour all the way, I'm pretty sure I could get 35 or even more to the gallon. To me, that's incredible for a car that weighs 3 tons nearly and has over 300 horsepower, four-wheel drive and shaped like a brick. To me, that's amazing. It's testament to how far diesels have come in the last 20 years. The only caveat with that, obviously, is that it does have a huge fuel tank on this. So yeah, I think it's something like 85 litres. So when you do come to fill it up, and if the tank's nearly empty, it is quite painful because you can easily go over 100 quid on a single fill. The only upside to that, of course, is that you get pretty good range. So like today, the trip computer will be telling me I've got over 500 miles range on one tank, which isn't too bad, really. Another thing to point out with this, obviously, is that my tyres are about 6% larger diameter than the standard. So the speedo underreads by about 6%, and obviously the odometer as well underreads by 6%. So in theory, you can add about 6% to the trip computer readings that I'm telling you for fuel economy, because it thinks it's doing 6% less miles than it actually is. So aside from all the costs, just generally living with the Range Rover, I'm finding to be absolutely great. Obviously, it's a massively practical car. I've used it already to pick up some big bulky stuff that I probably wouldn't have got in my old car, and just general day-to-day driving in it is really good. It's really low stress. It's quite a relaxing car to drive. You have fantastic visibility, which always helps. Big door mirrors, which I always love on a car. Fantastically comfortable seats, heated seats. And it's just generally a car that makes me smile when I get into it, which is the biggest, most important thing for me, really. Like today, once I finish recording this video, I'm just going to put my music on the stereo, which sounds fantastic, by the way, sit back in the nice big armchair and relax. And that's the kind of driving I want to do in the UK. When our roads are so congested and stressful to drive on, a car like the Range Rover is a fantastic thing to have because it just takes the stress away from all of your journeys. Although you still do get people that want to pull in front of you and then slow down for some reason. Never understood why they do that. So yeah, I can see this being a car that I'll keep for a while now. There isn't really anything out there that does as good of a job at so many things as Range Rover does. So hopefully that's been useful for you guys. Anybody who's considering buying one of these cars, my recommendation would be just to go for it. There's a lot of doom and gloom on the internet about these cars. Not all of it is well deserved. So as you can see, guys, it's now started snowing here, so I'm going to turn the camera off and concentrate on the road a bit more. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, and if you've got any more suggestions, more videos, please leave a comment down below. Cheers, guys.